Our next genre is historical fiction. This is one of my very favorite genres to read. So what is historical fiction? Historical fiction is a made-up story created by the author. The setting and many details included in the story are based on real historical events. So while the story itself is made up because it's fiction, it is based on true things. Let's look at the characteristics of historical fiction. First, the setting is a real location with a set time period. So the setting is a real place and it takes place in a certain time, usually sometime in the past. Next characteristic, the characters are real people that could be real or made up. So characters are people. They could be made up people or they could be stories of real people. A lot of times it's a mixture of both. There might be one character that was really a person who was alive, and then maybe the people they interact with are more fictional. Third characteristic of historical fiction, again, it's a mixture. The plot or the storyline is a mixture of real and made up. So characteristics, again, we have setting is a real place in a real time, usually in the past. The characters are people. They can be real people or slightly fictional people. And third, the plot is also a mixture of real events and made-up events. Why do authors write historical fiction? Authors usually write historical fiction to entertain their reader. They are telling a story. They also might be trying to share some information about a time period that is really interesting to them. So at the same time, they are informing the reader about a real point in history. There are a lot of awesome examples of historical fiction. Here are a few you might be interested in reading. First, we've got Little House on the Prairie. This is a series written by Laura Ingalls Wilder about her and her family traveling out west and settling and building their own home and their lives. This was a real time and place based on her real life, but a lot of the story is made up. Next up, we have Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. This story is set during the Holocaust, something that really did happen, but again, it has made up characters. Third is Bud Not Buddy, another award-winning example of historical fiction. These are made-up people, but it was based in the real time of the Great Depression and talks a lot about the really difficult experiences Black children had to go through at that time. I also want to share some of my favorite historical fiction books. They're both by the author Jennifer Nielsen. The first one's called Resistance. This is set also during the Holocaust. The second one is called A Night Divided, set during the Berlin Wall time. I really like these books because they have aspects of true facts. They have history, but they are packed full of action and adventure, and they are really interesting to read. What kind of historical fiction have you read before? Do you know if the characters were totally real or were they some made up? Most likely the historical fiction you've read was set in a real place during a real time in history.